Stay tuned for tonight's adventure with the Fat Man.
Okay, here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is. I hope it's good to be where you are because I'm really excited to be here today. My name is Baltimore Fats, and we're going mudletting with Mary. Yeah. Okay, that's right. Earlier this week, I had the great pleasure of having my good dear friend and sister from another mother, Mary, Lady Bmore History herself, here in the house. Lady Bmore History conspiracy theorist. Mary will have forgotten more about Baltimore than I will ever know just in the time it takes me to cut this intro. But so yeah, she came over and we had a lovely conversation, and while we were visiting, we thought it would be fun to try to make a video. And so it started out as a continuation of the King of the Hill series and the continuation of the story of the YMCA, but as with all things conversational, it kind of had an ebb and flow of all its own, and it kind of went in its own direction. And so I'm going to redo the other material because we kind of get away from it so much, and but we had so much fun cutting the video that there was no reason not to share, and I thought it would be a fun video to have out there as a chat. So here we go, mudletting with Mary.
Okay, and so we're finally going back to the Y, right? And I have to add right now, I'm more excited than usual today because today I have Lady Bmore History. Mary's in the house with me today.
Hello, everyone.
And so, do you see it, Mary?
I do.
You see exactly what I'm talking about. As soon as I picked this picture as the title card for that last video on the Y, was that it is a literal translation of the actual first Y building in Baltimore. Here's Charles Street and Saratoga, and that's a big red brick building, right? Triangle just like the Y. And here's a picture of it. You know, it's the exact, right, beautiful. It's just the exact representation of the Y logo. And I can't imagine that that's a coincidence, right? And so when I left off on the history of the Y, I was just about to get into Lord Shaftesbury, and we're going to do that, but I just want to just touch up on it a little bit here. You know, the Y was founded in 1844 by this gentleman here, Sir George Williams, and his 11 friends who, you know, were just so up in arms that the young men at the time, all they wanted to do was get drunk and get laid. And so he wanted to create the Young Men's Society for them, right? This is what the story tells us, right? And, you know, after a series of lectures, it took off in 1851 after the Great Exhibition, 1851, that thing, right? It took off after the Great Exhibition of 1851, and Anthony Ashley Cooper, 7th Earl of Shaftesbury, was elected president, and he stayed president until 1885. So for some 34 years, he was president of the YMCA and led it to its worldwide placement. I mean, all over the world. And so one thing I want to talk about with what was going on here in the formation of the YMCA, and this is a plaque. We were just looking at this, Mary and I, on the side of the first YMCA in Montreal, and of course it was erected on the occasion of the Jubilee celebration of, what was that, June 8th, 1901. Can't get away from the Jubilee. All right. But one thing I wanted to talk about, and so what was going on was the Industrial Revolution, right, which was the transition from hand production methods to machines and chemical manufacturing and iron production, right? Steam power came in the Industrial Revolution. Right. And so what it says here is the Industrial Revolution led to an unprecedented rise in the rate of population growth. Interesting. When I read that, it makes me think, well, what came first? It's like a chicken and egg thing.
No, that's not what I mean. It's interesting. 1840 is when the Russian Jews took over Calvert's mansion and made it a sweatshop. So
Okay.
to see 1840.
Yeah. Yeah, the dates are, you know, really crazy because they, you know, you don't know what program they're using, right? So at least this is the way I look at the dates, right? Everything's coded, right? So what code are they using, right? What's the code, right? You got the code? All right, guys, I don't know. Is the code 8s? Is it 6s? Is it 2s? Is it, you know? And that's something that comes up. I mean, we're gonna get a lot more 8s in this one. Right. And so for me, as I was about to say, is that when I read this, it makes me think chicken and egg, right? Especially when I'm looking at tying the false narrative to a population reset or a deliberate population growth.
I'm glad you can edit this stuff out.
Yeah.
1790, the Templar hit town.
1790? Okay.
50 years later, the Russian Jew movement came and took over the Carroll Mansion and made a sweatshop.
Right,
So
which is the one we went to down by the shot tower.
It would have been from natural hands-on production to an industrialized, we don't need your human hands anymore.
Mhm.
Just like now, it's going from people being cashiers to self-checkout.
Yeah.
We don't need you anymore. And it's exactly what the Industrial Revolution did. It took real, natural human strength and turned it into a machine,
Yep.
an industrial power.
Right. And so when I look at that, I'm trying to filter that through the population reset, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or whether it was or the possibility that perhaps we as a race, a species or whatever, was, deliberately created, our numbers artificially inflated to create the
They
workforce
say
that they have.
that when they say that, you
Right.
seeded the nations.
Nation, right, planted, right, all this planting going on, right? So
They weren't building it, they weren't growing trees. The
No.
trees were all right here.
Yeah,
So
oh, yeah.
you were seeding something.
right. So when I look at the timeline for this, and I think it's interesting that they put the beginning of the Industrial Revolution at like 1760, because I'm not looking at like an event, because we're looking at a lot of these buildings, like especially like the Greco-Roman major government buildings, like the City Hall and like things like this, were here. These things were already
the
here.
Moors were here.
Right, the Moors were here. I'm not putting a name or a face on anything that was here before,
Well,
right?
I'm
Because
just giving it to it because they give it to us.
yeah,
I mean,
right. That's what they tell us, but
were
I don't know. Right? They tell us it's a Moorish design, but how do I know really what you're telling? Why should I believe what you're telling me? You've given me nothing.
I don't believe nothing.
Right? Yeah. You've given me nothing to make me trust you. Right? So I think when looking at like how time passes for us, like we're both 50, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or about to be. So we've seen 50 years of growth. We've seen what 50 years does to certain buildings and so on and so forth. And so now when I try to place my experience and put it in a historical context and look at, if these buildings were here and were empty and just needed to be filled by someone or something, right? How old are these buildings? And so if you can sort of mentally trace, where on a building through your experience, like 50 years is a long time, or paying attention, maybe be 30 years or something, right?
No,
So you
it's
think
funny because there's a building in my neighborhood
300
that has
years,
been empty for 50 years of my life.
right? Yeah, and looks
And it's
exactly the
beautiful.
same the whole time, right?
It's
Exactly the same. So when I look at these things, I'm thinking, 300 years doesn't seem that unreasonable to me.
No.
That these buildings could be that old, right? And the marble ones, like the big government ones, much older, right? But the red brick ones could be, these big warehouses that we see in town, and they could be 300 years old and not 150 like they tell us in the record. I think that that's possible.
Yeah, these are 300-year-old buildings.
At least, right? Some of them.
Fells
Point. Look at some of the ones. I'm Mary. We could just go a block from my house here, and I can show you warehouse buildings that, to me, when I look at them, that thing is 400 years old.
Built this side of town, but I lived over the other side.
Yeah. All right. So when I'm looking at like they're creating these populations to fill these buildings that they have, right, or that they're using some of these warehouses to, like I said, like my idea is, and for lack of a better phrasing, it's just people production. They're just.
It reminds me of the priest prison church that just burned down on Asquith Street.
Yeah.
It's 3 blocks away from the original Quaker meeting house.
Yeah.
I sent you the picture where I showed you that this was the priest prison. This is where it has all their slave units right next to it. I mean, their warehouse complex is right next to the church.
Right.
They're nunneries today, or part of a school today.
Right. Do you remember? See, now we're talking about this, thinking about like these like breeding populations, right? They're breeding like you put, if you want to put the slave context to it, right? They have to make bigger, stronger workers for their plantations, right? They need
It's the low-income housing. It's right next to it.
Yeah.
When you get too many and they get old enough, they got to move out,
right?
And they need their own place. Well, now it's what we call the low-income houses that are getting ready to be torn down next to the prison, because you went from kidnapping women off the street and inquisitions on the streets of Baltimore.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that's what I'm kind of trying to get at is, and especially where this story is going to go once I get the Earl of Shaftesbury in on it. Is that if we were created, and this is sort of the line that I'm taking, that we as a species were brand new 300 years ago, like we didn't exist before that. This is kind of what I'm looking at, right? Not the way that we are today.
I think there were multiple species of people.
Yes.
The same way there are multiple species of other animals out there. Every mammal has another species of it.
Oh yeah.
And
well,
I think that there's been an ugly faction going around this entire age of time, trying to make all of those species into the one that they're
big
making.
people, little people, different colored people. I mean, not just the 3 or 4 colors we got today.
You want to
Major
unify
colors,
one size fits all society where
Yeah.
you can give one medication, one vaccine. You work at one job. This is what we're going to tell you to do, and they want that.
Yeah, that's the beehive. I mean, that's the hive thing, right?
And they're killing off all the other bees around.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So, see now.
We got distracted.
Yeah. No. Okay. So if they're making these new people, right, and there's nothing like them before, right, and when they come into as they grow and develop, there's no like precedent for them. It's not like like other animals in the ant. It's not like we had like an innate instinct to do anything.
No, it takes 2 generations of human beings to completely change history.
Right. Well, not only just change history, but perhaps even to implant instincts into a species, because it's not like we are.
It's a mental program.
Right. Yeah. And so when you're first waking, when you create this new species, you don't know how their brain works. There's going to be. See, I'm getting ahead of the story because I haven't brought up Shaftesbury yet. If they're creating new species, they have to have something for them to do, right? They have to have work for them. They have to have houses for them. Or these things, like houses and some of these things, were already there for them. And
no, they made them build them.
Right, they made them build them.
They came here. They stole the adults.
Yeah.
They took all the adult males, the working capable builder, planner, everything that they needed to do in a man.
Yeah.
And knocked up their women.
Yeah.
So. Planted the seed.
Right, planted the seed, and that's what I'm saying. If the conquest was the thing, right? If there were people here before, and it's not like we were brand new, right? Then that's like the way the story is playing out. That's right. They captured these women, and then they created breeding warehouses, right? to make their worker force, right? Because the numbers just get so big so fast.
Yeah.
But again, I'm also of maybe there wasn't,
No, you have the book on it. I mean, if you get into
right,
Jesuit diary,
right.
they document it. So
yeah,
they couldn't handle us evil savages that were here before them because we didn't believe what they did, and we were self-sufficient and could deal with our own stuff. And they don't want that. They want you dependent on that.
Yeah.
We need to help you. We need to guide you. Right. We need to save you.
And so they have these sort of new, but it as with anything, if you're doing this, like you want to do it in small batches, right? And so I'm looking at like this period here, and especially with where the YMCA and Lord Shaftesbury is going to come in, 1760 almost seems right, because we have the YMCA coming in the 1840s with these. All right, see, yeah, we talked. I got to get Shaftesbury in here, Mary. Okay, let's do Shaftesbury, and we'll bring it back. All right, because he's very important to this part of the story here. All right, here he is. All right, now they present the Earl of Shaftesbury as the 7th Earl. And now you and I were talking about this earlier, how who's to say that this time frame and the people of this era, because they're not in living memory anymore. The only thing we have to go by is written record or paintings, photographs, whatever they provide for us. Right? There's no living memory of Anthony Ashley Cooper. All right, and that some of these people, especially looking at the crown as these worm knights, right? And if you want to tie it back to the history of the Canaanite religion, and those earliest peoples lived to be hundreds of years old, thousands in some cases, right? So who's to say that some of these kings and queens and earls and dukes and so forth aren't just these same people, recycling themselves in and out with different names, right? Because there's no pictures of them, no reliable ones. I mean, even the ancients, you can tell me that's what Plato looked like because there's a marble bust of him in a museum, please, or something like anything like that, come on, get real. Yeah. But, so I think like, he could be like, there could be only one Anthony Ashley Cooper, right? And the 7th Earl of Ashbury, and his successor was the 8th. But the thing about him being the 7th, and when I look at him, look at the 8s that pop out all over his name. All right, 44, all right, which is an 8. And of course, if you want to open up the 4s, they make little 8s themselves, which could be an 88, right? We got 2 8s or 16. April 4, that's another 8. 1801, that's just a big old 8 if you want to do it that way. Right? He was born in 24 Grosvenor Square. All right, 24 is another 8. And I think, he died on October 1st. October, of course, was the original 8th month. And the thing about it, too, is I was thinking about like the COVID and the relief. What do you got? The cause of death, inflammation of the lungs. He had COVID. I was just about to say, with in America, with it coming out in March, right? And especially around the Ides of March. And what was March originally but the first month of the earlier Roman calendar? It was the new year, March was.
All I know is there was an APEC conference not 45 minutes from here.
Right. To start the new year, right?
Yeah.
Because the new year to them would have begun in March, right? It's when they changed the calendar did they add January and February. Yeah, right? I mean, so...
That's documented.
Right, oh yeah, no, that's totally true. Or as true as it gets, right?
Yeah.
Right, so I think, there's no coincidence in that.
Society for suppression.
Right.
I love it.
Right, and so look at what this guy was involved in. The reform of the lunacy laws, the child labor and factory reform, the miners, climbing boys, and what climbing boys were chimney sweeps, right? They were sending the little kids up there, right? Religion and Jewish restoration, right? Education reform, the Society for the Suppression of the Opium Trade, and we know what that means. The rule of opposites, the suppression of it. No.
Yeah,
we're gonna make that opium trade run. We're gonna make that stuff flow like it's the spice. Right? And so he, just looking at what he's involved with in the story of these things, and now, so this is what I was talking about when they're creating new populations around 1760. When I look at the lunacy laws and the history of lunatic asylums.
It's a madhouse! A madhouse!
That's how lunatic asylums started.
That's funny because I said the other day that I know how nomads came to be now.
Yeah.
They just finally got tired of all this lunacy in the world. They threw their hands up, gave away all their stuff, and said, you know what, no more madness for me, and rolled out. Because it was these people they were dealing with.
Yeah. Right. So we had, and it's interesting that some of the madhouses in England, like we're called, like the major one was the White House. Of course it was, right? But let's see, what was I going to get into with the madhouses here in the history of the lunatic asylum? So in Britain at the beginning of the 19th century, there were perhaps a few thousand lunatics, in quotes, housed in a variety of disparate institutions. But by the beginning of the 20th century, that figure had grown to 100,000. Now this is just in Britain, right? The growth coincided with the development of alienism known as psychiatry today. And so now think about...
The problem is lunatics back at that time, I mean... A century before this, a lunatic was a heretic. If you didn't believe their religion, you were insane, and we were going to keep you here until you did.
Right. Oh, they talk about, like, and we will here in a second. But what, the growth coincided with the development of alienism, now known as psychiatry. And so what is happening with all of us today? It's all psychological warfare. It's all manipulation of our mind.
It's been 19 years of it.
How we think. 19, it's been 200 years of it.
Operation
right, this current one, right, at least,
now.
Right, yeah. But so that's what I'm thinking these like madhouses were. Like the first batches of these new humans were coming in, right? And they didn't know what to make of them, and they didn't know how they were going to react, and so they were crazy. Their brains didn't know how to process anything because they were brand new creatures, right? So they had to be trained, they had to be studied, their brains, and so what these early madhouses did, and what these programs that, at least the way I'm playing it with, like I said, a deliberate repopulation thing.
There's a book about this around that time. Remember, my sister's a doctor of psychology.
Yeah.
There's a book written at this time where some expert psychiatry person went down and he decided to break down species of people by brain size of ancient skulls found.
Yeah.
His research was total BS.
Yeah.
But they were breaking it down by species. So if you look at your thing, is they were eliminating a species of human beings, and they were putting the ones they didn't want into the asylums. I could see that.
Yeah. Well, but like I said, for me, it's like there's this new species. They're coming in. They're crazy, right? Their minds need to be trained. you know, and they need to develop this new species to become the workforce that they want.
What is their alienism word?
Alienism is, well, that's what psychiatry was called before it was psychiatry. They called it alienism. All right, it's the archaic term for psychiatrist. An alienist is the archaic term for psychiatrist or psychologist.
Okay.
All right, because they were studying alien, right? What was this?
People different to them.
This was a foreign thing,
Mhm.
right? And this is also around the time. Let's see, where is it? Let's see, in Britain in the beginning. Let's get into the history here, because you'll see what I'm talking about.
I know you're going to edit this out.
No,
This
no,
Islamic thing right here.
yeah. No, this is all part of the story.
Somebody sent me documents from 1906
Uh-huh.
from the U.S. Supreme Court
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about the United States being under Islamic law in Morocco.
Well, this Mary the fucking Fort McHenry points to Mecca. You know, that's not a coincidence. That thing was built, they tell us, in 1795.
I'm really interested to take everything I know
Yeah.
and from a silent, unspoken perspective.
Yeah.
Look at the Islamic control here.
Yeah. Well, and again, I don't.
You're gonna have a lot of editing now.
No, I'm just gonna do they have like 2-hour chats. I'm gonna clean up the beginning a little bit in this, but for the most part, I'm just gonna let this go. It's a long chat thing. But the cube right here, next to the basilica, next to St. Paul's, that is Islamic, and the Unitarianism. What did the Islamics say about Unitarianism? It was the closest thing to Islam that the Christian faith could offer. It was something.
Let's go to church.
What, right now? I can't.
No, when they're open. Let's go to church.
What's funny too? I signed up, they had the online thing. I signed up for that to go to their online church for Easter, the Unitarianism. I signed up for their newsletter. I have yet to get anything from them. I signed up on both my accounts, my private email and the Baltimore Fans one.
Really?
Yeah. So they got a grand total of 6, actually. I'm sorry. They got a grand total of 4 because there was 2 different newsletters, 4 requests from me, and I got nothing back from them. But, again, the Islamic tie coming into the history of the United States out of nowhere, it jumped me. I didn't see it coming. And when I look for
You keep yourself secret, right?
Right. And then, where's the map? Because one thing about especially putting an Islamic presence on top of Cathedral Hill, as now just happened. Where is it? All right, because we have the cathedral right in here, St. Paul's over here. So that's the Anglicans. That's the Church of England. All right, we have the Roman Catholic Church, the Church of England. We have the Islam. What are they? Is it the Church of Islam? I don't know how you would say it as a religion, right? We have them here. Where are the Jews? Right,
Well, it's funny because I originally thought that was a Jewish synagogue.
Which one? Oh, you thought the Unitarian thing was?
I really did.
Right, because the dome, right?
Looking it up, I thought it was Jewish. But no, they're actually up the street in Charles Street. They build and move out.
Right, but it's just interesting that those 2 major religions would be so tightly grouped on Cathedral Hill. So where is the Jew in that area, or where is the Jew in Baltimore? And I found them down. They're down here. No, they're here. Right, you know where I'm talking about. This is where that big synagogue is that we drove by.
On Light Street?
Not on Light Street. No, over in just on the here's one.
They had Zion. They didn't need a synagogue. They had Zion Church.
No, where is it? It's here somewhere. St. Andrews.
They're just, if it's there, they're just now putting it in because they had Zion Church to worship at.
Where's the fucking shot tower?
Up the street.
Here? Jew synagogue. All right, 1851.
Oh, that's the one that's by the, that's in Jew Alley. That's Jew Row.
Right. So, we have like the Catholics, the Protestants, and the Muslims up here by the cathedral, and the Jews are down here.
But they always separated themselves. All of that area right there, you got the Carroll Mansion on the corner.
Mm-hmm.
You have Adam's
See, I
Deli
lost it already.
forever. This is, well, not forever.
Right.
Until the reform and all of these things closed, we can go up to that synagogue. That's open. That's the historical museum.
Yeah, yeah. And there's another one down here as well. But look, we have the Eastern Female High School. We have an orphan asylum right here as well. All right. Here's the shot tower. I think it's interesting that it's Merchant's shot tower here, but I think, is it Carroll built that?
Phoenix shot tower.
That's just
That says
Merchant.
Merchants.
Right,
but
right.
ours is called Phoenix, so
All right, so I think, just that those religious ties coming in on the top of Cathedral Hill here. Whoops. And also Fort McHenry, finding out that Fort McHenry, that arrow points directly to Mecca. That is just right. I just can't believe that. All right. Let's see. So, we got off with where we were going with the madhouses. So they're studying these new populations. They're whipping them into the shape because this is around the same time I wanted to find where it said it in England here, right? Because again, there's only so much I can trust anything before. Like I say, I think the narrative as they present it to us really starts in what they present as the 1600s. Anything before what they present as the 1600s to me is really hard to buy into. I just don't trust any of that information at all.
The space weather aspect of it, it seems that there was a major weather event somewhere. Catastrophe. I'm not going to say catastrophe because if you say catastrophe, people think the end. It's never the end.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of things get messed up and stuff has to be reworked. But I think that they had way more technology than they want us to lead. I think they stole the technology at that point.
Yeah.
The same way that they stole
the
natural stuff. They stole the technology.
That's where like the spectroscopy, that's where like the Fraunhofer and looking at that, what they were doing with glass and stuff, whether they were stealing and reverse engineering some technology that was here before that they found, right? Or they were making new technologies, right? Looking at what they were doing with the lenses and with glass and things like that really changed the way reality could be seen and presented.
Okay.
Right? Tell me, what do you got?
I think I need to do it. Spiritual energy lesson.
Yeah. Give me a spiritual energy lesson.
The solar theory on this is that the sun will project some sort of energy, and the catastrophe is that it manipulates the genetics of the human being because we're created by the universe.
Yeah.
And it wipes your mind if you don't have the vibratory stimuli to get yourself through that event.
Yeah. Right, you have to be in a certain place.
So
right?
If somebody knew what was going to happen, and somebody was with a group of, say, 500,000 other people that they wanted to keep in a situation, the rest of the world wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Yeah. Interesting. All right, so let's... Okay, what were we
Sorry,
doing?
I lost one.
Yeah, right. All right, so anyway, and I think this is interesting. I thought this was funny too, that the ancient person, where was it? Attached to the Teutonic Knights Hospital, they had this madhouse. It was called the Toll House, and I thought Toll House cookies.
And they came to Baltimore in 1790.
Yeah. But that's what I was saying, right? So I don't know how much I can trust anything, because like I said, to me, the birth of the Royal Society and those people, right? Those are the people that I'm looking at, right? And they're the ones who created the history before them, right? They wrote the story, these people, of this time frame. Your Francis Bacons and your Newtons and whoever you want to put up there, they're the ones. Or, those are the ones accredited the story.
Yes.
All right. But they say that, that the lunatic asylum thing didn't really start to hold until like the 16th century, right around the time, or the 17th century rather, right around the time that the Royal Society was coming together, right? And so you hear the Royal Society, lunatic asylums, you have for the first time them, as the Royal Society's motto was to expand the empire, all right, to control the arts and sciences in the name of the empire, right? Right, and so they're now looking at the brains of these crazy people, whether they're new, they're old, whatever they are, right? And they're starting to break down the alienist part of it, the psychology of it, and how they can condition and train and what they can do with this new species, right? And how they're going to manipulate the populations that they intend to grow, this workforce that they're intentionally building, right? And perhaps even just recycling out every 100 years or so. They just create a new version of us, right? It's right, or every so many hundred of years, whatever. Right.
And they say they do.
Yeah, right.
Education and religion reform. That's
Yeah.
exactly what it is. It's changing the program that they're putting out to people.
Right, yeah. Just giving it an upgrade or whatever, right? Yeah. All right, so they start doing this in the 1600s around that time with the and so Shaftesbury here, I don't think he is a member of the Royal Society, but he is he was a member of the Noble Order of the Garter, which is the third highest order. But one thing about him, and again, being in charge of the madhouses the way they were, but also the child labor, there were so many children. There's so many sweatshops and things like this at that time in the late 1700s and early 1800s that were just, being run by, or not run, but being run by children, right? Everything was being made by children. It was all child labor. Because
it's not hard. You enslaved their fathers
and
took them to do whatever manual labor they had to do at the time. Because remember that the Industrial Revolution is just starting, so we're still using manpower.
Right. Oh yeah, yeah.
So they enslaved the men. They did inquisitions and stole the women. The ones that they didn't steal, they killed.
Yeah.
I mean, they took the women away. They reformed them into nuns. They knocked them up in kid warehouses. Yeah. So where are all the kids?
Right.
Where are all the kids that were here before? Now they're in asylums. Now they're getting reformed to the program. We're going to train you how to work for us.
Right.
Thank them, because now we have the workforce that we have today, because now we're enslaved to a paycheck.
Right.
That's how it works.
Well, right, but there were so many young people moving to the cities that they needed.
Well, they trained them in the 1840s.
But where were they coming from? Especially if they were being enslaved and put in the terms of England, right? Okay. Massive empire they got, but they don't say. Was it all military? Because there's plenty to suggest that there was just a regular, how.
They did.
I don't know how to say
it.
Yeah.
They did it again in 1940. They didn't put the kids on trains that time.
Yeah.
They put them on planes and flew them over here. I mean, we stole other people's kids in 1940 and reformed them to be the Western ignorant Americans that we are today.
Yeah. Interesting. I like
1940.
That. But see, now I'm thinking.
I'm sorry, I talk to people from all over the world, so I see the mentality of the people walking the streets.
Yeah. And
I can understand why the world believes or says the things that they do about Americans. Because we believe some pretty ignorant shit.
Well,
not we, because I ain't involved in
it.
Right. But.
Well, that's an interesting point, too, because, what really I think the greatest trick being played, at least on us today, is that America really is the third world. And that we just think otherwise. We've been brainwashed and conditioned to think otherwise.
They've been told it, and they never questioned and just followed that fact.
We're not first world here. Yeah. We're not first world at all.
They were told we're the best in the world. Yeah. We're the best in the world at what?
At what? And that's the thing about, because as we mentioned earlier, we're the same age pretty much. And when I grew up a proud American. I was proud of America. I loved the 4th of July and the whole we won our independence and we're free and all of this. But then when you start to really look at it and see that all of that is just BS.
My God, I think I might have to throw that out there.
Throw it out there.
Who
cares, Mary?
It's the 1633 thing that we were talking about.
Yeah.
When the Zionists usurped the power of God in America by killing the first, Roman Catholic president.
Yeah.
It can't be no coincidence they both happened on Friday, November 22nd. It can't be no coincidence that one was 1633 and one was 1963.
Yeah.
Our entire life we have been living a life where they've been transitioning to Christian right out of society.
Yeah.
I mean, when we were kids, we had the I Am an American Day parade here.
Did
We
you?
were proud people to sit up by Patterson Park
Yeah.
and proclaim that we were Americans standing together, unified as people against the rule of government above us.
Yeah.
That we respected at the time.
Right. Well, but
I can't say we respected.
right. I mean, there was all kinds of stuff going on at the time too. But there was the conditioning program was still in place for us, like our generation, me and you, right? They were still pumping that rah American bullshit to us in the 70s and into the early 80s with Reagan. It's after Reagan.
It was actually during the Reagan administration that the Jewish population began getting in to the federal government.
Yeah.
I have those on slides in my computer. Look.
You can bring your slides up. You can just sign right.
You know, no. Pull up the Hopkins slides. It's on there.
This may take a couple of days worth of editing.
Chief of Staff.
Chief of Staff of what? I can't read that.
He's the U.S. President Ronald Reagan's White House Chief of Staff, 88-89. That's the first Jew in the White House.
Really? Like ever like in the cabinet or anything like that? Interesting.
In the presidential staff. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Right. He would have only been the last year too. He would have transitioned into
when Bush had full control.
Yeah.
Because remember, once they shot Reagan, he wasn't.
Yeah, Reagan wasn't in charge after that. If he was ever.
Yeah,
I mean,
but this is how.
Yeah. Okay, so we have the fascies. We got the Iron Fist. It's an Iron Fist right there in the top. We got the pine cone, the pineal gland there. There's a lot of shit going on.
When was Nancy Pelosi's father in Congress? In 1950.
Yeah, is that when was Pelosi's father a part of this fraternity?
He was supporting the Bergson group. That's the Russian Zionists.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, the gold seeker, Mars Gold Seeker, came over here, immigrant Polak. If you pull him up on Wiki, he comes up living the American dream, made $20 million in the city. He's got a Gold Seeker Foundation today that developed, because it's a nonprofit, developed corrupt Mayor Peter's design school.
I love non-profit. Just means they don't have to show their profits. I think. I mean, that's what it makes me think of, right? Because there's no way people aren't making money off non-profits. It's just they wouldn't be able to exist.
Mitchell's house.
Who was Clarence Mitchell again?
The first Supreme Court justice.
Was he? The first black one? Are we talking about the same thing with? No, wasn't that Clarence Thomas?
No, it's Clarence Mitchell. It might be Clarence Thomas. I don't know. I know it as
right with the Anita. God, see, you're making my brain hurt. I have to think back to the '80s on that. Right?
Yeah, the Clarence Mitchell courthouse. It's Mitchell's house. He's got a courthouse, but he's got a vacant.
All right, so maybe Clarence Thomas wasn't the first black one. Let's look him up real quick. Clarence Mitchell. How do you spell Clarence? E-N-C.
Yeah.
Am I spelling Mitchell? Is that him there?
The junior. Yeah.
The junior American activist. All right.
They named a courthouse after him, but he's got a vacant in Baltimore City that they won't let get rehab.
He was the 101st U.S. Senator.
Yeah, I know what it is. Under Johnson.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know anything about him. Oh, whoa. Let's see. What was this? Let's see. Later, he faced some criticism in the black community for supporting Daniel Moynihan. All right. And defending the state of Israel. Interesting. All right.
So his name's on
he won.
House.
Right. He won the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Jimmy Carter. All right.
And after he retired, he became the voice to the public for the order.
For the order? Which
He
order is that
became
again?
he became a editorial writer for the
The
Baltimore
More
Sun.
Sun. Yeah, I saw that there. Yeah.
The order that is in charge. I mean, yeah.
So many orders, right? And that's another thing too. So like getting back to it, however it is, and it's funny. I think it's funny. You think you're trying to self-censor yourself, Mary. I'm sitting on here talking about like worm knights creating people from whole cloth in the 1600s. You don't have to edit yourself. Oh, I have it up already, Mary. It's up here because it's part of my it's part of the YMCA thing.
I don't even have my glasses on. I'm trying to I can't even see.
Is it the Order of the Constitution that you want?
No, it's Constantine.
All right.
No, it should have been the Red Cross of Constantine.
Red Cross of Constantine.
Order of the Red Cross. This I found when I was doing the degrees of the Masons. According to the Scottish Rite Order of the Templar that's downtown, this order should not have even been included because this is not a Christian order. It was included. I even have a letter that another Templar wrote saying this should not even be a degree in Freemasonry because it's not even a Christian adoption.
So what does that mean then if it's not Christian? What is the
Constantine wasn't Christian. Constantine
well, he created
Mithras.
right. Well, that's what I was gonna say. According to according to mainstream history, Constantine is where modern Christianity comes from. It's where the church was created from Constantine.
That's right. But if you look at all of the history behind what Constantine did, the Constantine Arch is right next to the Mithras Memorial. I mean, when you go through the Constantine Arch, it's him taking over the power of that.
Yeah.
That's where the Constantine joke came in. The people, you look at this statue and you say, yeah, that's that person. What everybody looks at Jesus Christ, that's Constantine.
Yeah.
I mean, that shit, those are Canaanites right there.
Here, this order of
The Mithras was.
So this is right. This is Mithras worship here. This order of the Constantine, you think?
Yeah, Constantine was worshiping Mithras. I'll include a video for that in the show notes.
All right. All right, but you have to be see. It's interesting that you have to be a part of the Christian order to get into this one, or is that's just a cover? That's just a cover story.
The story now.
Yeah, who knows?
The thing that I got is from like 1800, saying that this shouldn't even been included in it.
Yeah, here it's almost they just say, "Oh, this is the chart that we looked at."
That's the chart essentially.
Yeah, right. They just said there that they adopt the medieval military orders that really weren't part of the Freemasonry.
I mean, it's kind of freaky if you think about it. The Order of the Red Cross of Constantine.
Right.
We have the Red Cross sucking people's blood.
Right. See, because having RP and the visual problems that I have, a lot of like symbology gets lost on me. I just, I don't pick up on it, right? And I really have to sort of.
I'm a pattern person.
Yeah, I
have to pick up the pattern.
Right. I have to look at something, to really catch the symbology or to catch symbolism in it. All right. And one thing that I've been looking at with the YMCA building and how, again, it just ties into this conditioning program for whatever it is, whether it's slaves, whether it's new people. But the one thing about it is, where is the do I have a picture of it brought up here? There we go. All right, so we have the Star of David on the side of it here. Like, where's the other symbol? So because also the Red Cross is intimately tied with the YMCA. I mean, the Henri Durand, who founded the Red Cross, was president of the French YMCA. I mean, there's a deep connection there. But what I want to show you is this other picture.
Bill Gates emblem I just showed you.
Yes, this one up here, right? And because this I've never seen before. Where did it go? There it is. I'd never seen this before. I tried to search it, but I couldn't make heads or tails of it. But But Jay, a subscriber, he mentioned that he felt that this was like a deconstructed Vesica Pisces. And so what a Vesica Pisces is,
Oh,
yeah, oh yeah, I'm gonna. It's a great point because again,
there's a good
where is
way
it?
and there's a bad way. You can say that.
All right, the Vesica Pisces right here. That's this shape in the center of two circles, right?
Yes.
You know, in this esoteric thing. And so when I look at,
Well, this conjoined. You add the third one and it makes
right,
the Trinity.
right, and so
this is a good thing.
Yeah.
This, because they're connected, is good. Go to this guy right here.
Okay.
This is Barr. Remember I told you I keep getting him screwed up with fucking Bill Burr.
Right, yeah, the comedian, yeah.
Well, I went looking him up.
Yeah.
Zoom it in. Where's the fucking zoomy thing on this?
Is there a
Right
zoomy
there.
thing? Here, just take it away.
Oh, no. Bill Barr. Serving currently Attorney General for Trump. Just since February, he was already trained in the Central Intelligence Agency since he was a teenager.
Yeah.
Worked in the Bush administration. A multi-millionaire for working for Verizon. He served on the board for
5G.
Time Warner. A longtime proponent of the unitary executive authority to give the president full authority over the country, superseding Congress.
What?
In '89, Barr was the head of the people who wanted to invade Panama to arrest Noriega. He, in '92, pardoned 6 people involved in Iran-Contra affair. It was his idea.
Yeah.
He was a tough on crime. He wants the prison rate to increase. And his father, of course, is a Jewish nationalist, raised in Judaism, but converted to Christianity and joined the Catholic. He's a converso. But this is Osler. Check this out.
What do we got?
Osler. The Osler building in Hopkins,
Yep.
one of the founding doctors. His family ship was destroyed by an Atlantic storm. He was a historian and a practical joker.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he was. Atlantic storm was authorized by the biomedical department at Hopkins.
Biosecurity, yeah, that's
Operation number 2
Yeah.
in Event 201.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Unbelievable.
Yeah, so you close that out. I just wanted to show you that.
Yeah, no.
I checked out Barr.
I'm just trying to find where did that window go that had the there it is. We found it. But the Vesica Pisces all over this, right? Right here. There it is. There it is. There it is. All right. Right, the Society of the Rosicrucian and
I have the founder of the Rosicrucian Order up on my computer.
right, Order of Holy Wisdom. Right, and if the Vesica Pisces is a representation of the female genitalia, the Holy Wisdom.
What is the Holy Wisdom?
It's the vagina. Come on.
No. The secret to the society is, who is your God?
Yeah.
You have energy that created the universe. A man didn't do it. Energy created the universe.
Right. Well, that's the whole.
So who is God?
Yelled about.
God is the person who created you.
Well,
God
no.
is-
Well, according to like the
God, my
Gnostic
Father.
view, like God is like the oneness. There is no like.
There is no universal God. God
Right.
is a universal energy.
Right,
But if
yeah,
we all
there's-
put our heart energy into making things better, we could produce a better environment for all of us.
Right. Well, that's the
Well,
Gnostic principle, right?
that
That we're
exactly.
plucked from this thing, and now we're fractured.
We're
You know?
fractured because they took that universal energy and made him a walking man on earth that everybody drops to their knees and prays to as my God. Even everything that you say, God my Father. God my Father.
here's-
God my Father. He created you. It's your Father. Your mother was the creator of life. So why are you worshiping and respecting anything outside of your parents?
Yeah.
Why is the church telling you how to live? It ain't the church that's telling you how to live. It's your God that made you. That God that made you, it could take you out. I know that your father or somebody has said that to you in your life.
Yeah.
I'll take you out of this world just as
Right.
I brought you
She went
into
to it, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I understand.
It's funny that you said that because this lunatic friends society, and you know what a friends society
I
is.
know what
You know where this is going real quick, right? This lunatic friends society was started by this guy, Richard Paternoster, right? And so I looked that up. Paternoster is the Our Father. That's Latin for Our Father, right? So Richard
That
Paternoster
couldn't have been
is
any more ironic.
right, is our father, Dick. I couldn't believe that when I put that together.
Every place you look, all around the world, all directs back to obelisks,
Yeah,
steeples.
yeah. The phallic symbolism
It's
is
all
ridiculous.
phallic
Oh
symbolism.
yeah. Oh, it's crazy.
Well,
Right, and then on the other side of
what
it, the Vesica
phallus
Pisces.
created you?
Did you see that the
Okay.
Washington Monument is in a Vesica Pisces?
Yes, I know.
Yeah, yeah. I also think it's interesting that this Percival was a part of it too. You know, Percival being a knight of the Round Table. You know, one of King
Imagine.
Arthur's guys, right? But here's the thing, right? This Brisling House was one of these insane asylums, right? In madhouses, right? Run by the Quaker Edward Long Fox. And now the Quakers were started by a George Fox, right? Who was friendly with Oliver Cromwell. And we were talking a little bit about that, you and I. I could not, just a quick Google search, I could not directly link Edward Fox and George Fox, but I cannot believe that they're not related, you know, in some way, shape, or form. All right. And so this is where we see like the Quaker influence, and this is what I'm talking about, like mind control and the psychological warfare that happens and how.
Well, they say that it was brutal in there.
Right. And so it's these Quakers because when you follow that Quaker lineage along through Johns Hopkins, and we start looking at what Johns Hopkins, the hospital is, and it's the psychology department that comes out of Johns Hopkins is one of the premier psychological hospitals in the world. You know, and this all goes back to the Quakers. You know,
Well,
those crafty Quakers.
continue.
Let's continue. Right, we're getting a little short on time here now. Oh yeah, so just like the just tying Hopkins, you know, what psychiatry is, right? And did I again? I kind of got scattered. I might actually have to try to do my presentation straight on, and this is just like a miasma, we created some sort of weird conspiracy stew
Well, here,
with this
we'll
one.
end it with this.
What are we gonna do? Do it.
Edit all our shit out we just talked about. We'll pick up with Quaker. Let's bring in the Quaker connection to Hopkins, because not only is it created by the Quakers, who we already see here are brutal
Yep.
in their treatment of people.
Right. His treatment had been brutal.
But 2 of the first 4 doctors are connected to the Brotherhood of Death, who set the precedent to train all of the Hopkins staff from that point. So you have the Brotherhood of Death training people in their way in this brutal fashion of Quaker reform.
I mean, Wikipedia is the AI. I think Wikipedia is the Matrix. If you just put anything in there, bang, there's a Wikipedia thing on it, right?
For anybody who didn't know, that's Yale Skull and Bones.
All right. Oh, this is a low-budget action film. Wait a minute.
No, you want Yale Skull and Bones right here.
Oh, okay.
There you go. 2 of our 4 founding doctors come from Yale.
I didn't see.
Skull and Bones.
I've never looked up Skull and Bones, like just to dig into it, right? I didn't know it was called the Brotherhood of Death.
September 11th, 1991, Skull and Bones member President George Bush gave a speech about a new world order.
Oh yeah, 1,000 points of light.
The rule of law and not the law of the jungle. And he promised that it would happen.
I love that they could marry. I love they call it a secret. There's no secret. There's nothing secret about Skull.
No, click on Secret Society. Because the best part is when you click on Secret Society, it's not on their list.
It's not on. Of course, because it's secret. The Order of the Star Spangled Banner.
Already did.
Right? Tell me that's not out of Baltimore. In New York City?
Yep.
Star Spangled Banner has nothing to do with New York City. New York City.
Didn't have anything to do with Betsy Ross either, but look at that.
Yeah. The members were nativists. The heck was a nativist?
That's
Is that
me.
like what your shirt is? Mary's wearing a shirt that says "Make America Native Again."
Yeah. Read the rest.
What does it say? I can't read. All right, the color of the skin is less important than the spirit which moves it. Yeah.
Power to my people with the power I got this from.
There you go. Right, is a political policy of promoting the interests of native inhabitants. Interesting.
And we can start that order again.
Which order?
The Order of Star Spangled Banner. We'll house out like Fort McHenry. We'll take it back.
Does it say anything about Fort McHenry in here?
I saw the know nothings and got distracted.
Are there no nothings in here? Oh, there they are. Members invariably responded to questions claiming that they knew nothing. Right? This practice caused newspaper editor to label them know nothings. Right? And the know nothing riots. You speak a little
Happened in 1856.
right here in Baltimore.
Yes.
All right. All right. The Native American Party. Interesting. What a fancy hat.
Well, you can tell they weren't much native, you know.
Right. Oh, and that's the thing.
They were Romanists.
We had a long talk about the Red Men Society. Remember, because it was going to come up in the Jubilee that.
Now, get this. All of our founding fathers warned us of Romanists.
Mhm.
From they couldn't talk about them. They said that they had to speak of them in a whisper or a hush. Well, get this. These people right here, this Know Nothing party that started the 1856 riots here and invaded the Democratic Party, are allegedly believed to be the Romanist conspiracy. So they are the exact same people that we were warned about in 1774.
Yeah, and it's interesting that the Romanists would have a nativist thing because considering what they did to the natives.
They were the ones that came here
Yeah.
and planted, seeded the population, and took over. They're the Romanists. That's what every American president has warned you about.
And so now, when I was doing again,
And how better to name yourself the exact opposite of what you are. You're not an American party.
Yeah.
You were the exact
don't
opposite of that.
it's unfortunate because if I had my other laptop, still I didn't transfer all my files into this. I have an external hard drive which is not here in this room, so I'm not going to take the time to get all that set up. But otherwise, I would be able to bring up the articles that I saved from the Baltimore Sun when I was working on the Jubilee.
Mhm.
And I could bring up the Party of the Red Men and we could talk a little bit about that as well. But we'll get to that. The Red Men will come up again whenever I get back to the Jubilee. But this also started. Where did this start? This started with the secret societies, right? It's interesting that this is the only one that they put in North America.
Uh-huh. But they label themselves a secret society,
Right.
but you're not even on the secret society list.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, because it's not a secret, right? I mean, and I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know the names, but maybe you do. I mean, but the one in Harvard, whatever that one's called, there's one in Princeton, whatever that one's called. I mean, they're not really secret, you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
have a
it's
whole spreadsheet
you know,
of them.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. I just don't know the names of them off the top of my head, right? But yeah, I never knew that Skull and Bones was called the Brotherhood of Death, right?
Well, hello. That's who our doctors at Hopkins are trained
Yeah.
by.
Bones, right? And bones is an old term for a doctor, right? You were bone saw, right? Yeah. All right. I think we're gonna wrap it up, Harry. I guess with this one now, because I got to get a move on the day.
Yes.
But this was a lot of fun, Mary. We need to do this again, right?
That
And
went all different
it
directions.
did. It really. It was fun.
You did do your YMCA episode.
Yeah, I didn't get that. I didn't get Shaftesbury in the way that I wanted. I don't know how much I'm gonna have to edit some of this out to. Yeah, I'm gonna take a look and see how much what we have here, but we'll run this and we'll do a chat with it. Yeah, we'll do a chat with it. I think it'll be fun, and we'll do it again.
Let's do a sign off so you can.
Yeah, and I will take a look at Shaftesbury, and we'll get further into that because it is, I really think, very telling that all of this stuff ties together through the YMCA. And like I said, the function of YMCA and these lunatic asylums and the women's asylums and things like that, where they were the indoctrination houses. They were the earliest steps of that before the schools were
The
ready
first
before the big
feminist
populations.
movement
Right.
was
Yeah.
it was for women that were spending daddy's B&O money going against Johns Hopkins.
Yeah.
That was the feminist movement that started in the United States.
Yeah.
It's all connected to these people.
Yeah. It's a tangled web. All right. So, all right. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. And until the next one, cheers, guys.